I thought the government was supposed to be shut down by now. It's Monday. What happened? What's up, guys? Ruben Chavez, Too Strong Mortgage, and today we're talking about Democrats and Republicans fighting over the debt ceiling and why that is. Please remember, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. So, the debt ceiling is the maximum amount of money the US government is allowed to borrow. It's not the same as the national debt, which is the total amount of money that the government owes. The debt ceiling is raised every few years and it's usually a pretty routine process. But to no one's surprise, this year, the Democrats and Republicans are fighting over it. The Democrats, well, they want to raise the debt ceiling without any conditions. They say that it's important to do so to avoid a default on our national debt, which would have a disastrous consequence for this economy if that were to ever happen. But the Republicans, they want to use the debt ceiling as negotiations to try and get the Democrats to agree to spending cuts and other policy changes. The primary fight seems to be over the border security and Ukraine funding. The Republicans want to increase funding for border security and reduce funding for Ukraine. But the Democrats, they want to keep the funding in Ukraine at its current level and increase funding border security only if it's accompanied by comprehensive immigration reform. Both sides can be incredibly ridiculous and outwardly lie just to toe the party line when they're talking about their position and their stance on this issue. Here's an example of a Democrat doing that right here.
So Republicans' biggest criticism of the bipartisan Senate spending bill, this compromise that's being worked over on the other side of Capitol Hill, is that it does not contain additional funding for border security. Right now, the U.S. is facing a crisis at the border and this historic wave of Venezuelan migrants crossing into the U.S. Do you agree that something needs to be done about our border, that it's just not sustainable? I mean,
well, I certainly disagree with any people, and certainly our most vulnerable who are fleeing great destabilization and violence and corruption from being used as political pawns. No doubt about it, our border is secure, and we're in the midst of a humanitarian crisis, and we have to fix a broken system.
Wait,
and we also
you think it is secure? You think the border is secure, or it is not secure?
I believe that we are in the midst of a humanitarian crisis, and there needs to be federal investment to support those migrant families. And I work with a number of those community-based organizations on the ground, and they need more support. They need more federal support. This is a humanitarian crisis, and it's the consequence of a number of longstanding broken policies that are very consequential for asylum seekers, TPS holders, and DACA recipients writ large. But that is a conversation for another day.
Okay, so now this is incredibly broken up. I've broken this up because she just repeats, because he keeps on asking her the same question because he wants her to tell the truth. He's doing her a favor, and I'll show that to you. But she just says the same exact answers. She's bloviating, so I didn't put her responses to be fair because it would take too long, and she says the exact same thing over and over. But I did let her explain her position in the beginning so that you guys knew what it was. So here we go.
Sure. I don't disagree with this being a humanitarian crisis at all, but just to get some clarity on this, and sure, that's a conversation for another day, but do you think that the border is secure? Is that what you said?
Yes, the border is secure.
But if you have millions of undocumented migrants coming into the country, how is the border secure? I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying except for the idea that the border is secure. I mean, if you have people crossing the border, it's just by definition not secure. If you have people coming to the United States illegally, but it just seems like just such a refusal to acknowledge reality just to say that the border is secure when we all know millions of people are crossing the border illegally every year.
It's a layup. Just admit it.
Jake, and that is a consequence of a number of things.
Okay. It sounds like in there you acknowledge that there are millions of people crossing the border illegally, which would mean that the border is not secure. But I mean, I don't disagree with any of the points you made about these people are trying to seek better lives and they're escaping all sorts of horrible things. But would you grant me the point that the border is not secure?
Jake, that is a conversation for another day.
All right. So you can just see she's towing the party line, right? It doesn't matter whether she's right or wrong. They want her to say this, and that's her stance. Because if she admitted that the border was not secure, then that would be somehow admitting that Biden's not doing his job. Well, I guess that would be true. But listen, Republicans are much better, right? Now, they essentially do the exact same thing on the other side. Here's Matt Gaetz. Right? He's a Republican. I'm going to show you Matt Gaetz. He's a Republican congressman who doesn't want to negotiate, right? He wants to grandstand instead of negotiate. And while he's doing this, and he's willing to put the country at risk of default in order to do so, here he is saying that he wants to get rid of the current House Speaker because he didn't get his way. It's the same thing on both sides. Here's Matt Gaetz.
Now look, it takes only one person, obviously, you, to call for a vote. To remove him, so-called motion to vacate. But you would need a majority to remove him, which means you're going to need Democrats to remove him. Do you really think that Democrats are going to vote to remove Kevin McCarthy because he made a deal with Democrats?
No.
Exactly.
I actually think Democrats are going to bail out Kevin McCarthy. But if they want to keep him, then he belongs to them.
But so you're not accomplishing anything here. I mean,
that's not true.
Well, you don't have the votes to remove him. So.
Well,
Same thing again. I did a lot of cutting out because he just says garbage, but this guy is trying to lead him into saying, come on, this is ridiculous. But of course, Matt will just grandstand and, follow his party line, even though actually he's about to be ousted because Republicans are actually mad at him for this as well.
By the way, I don't know until we have him. And by the way, I might not have him the first time, but I might have him before the 15th ballot. That's the number of ballots Kevin McCarthy needs.
So are you going to do this every day like you had suggested? Or are you going to go through this process of voting over and over and over again?
I am relentless.
If you somehow succeed after multiple tries, I mean, who would be the speaker?
Well, we have a lot of talented people in our conference. Obviously, it's an awkward discussion while our number 2, Steve Scalise, is in treatment for blood cancer. So I'm not going to pass somebody over because they're getting a medical treatment. I want to see how Steve Scalise comes out of that.
But I want to. You faced some criticism.
Again, he's just like the last video. This guy's trying to help him out, but he wants to keep sinking.
From fellow conservatives on this, who say that you are the one that basically kneecapped McCarthy because he tried to do a bill that included changes in border policy. He tried to do a bill that would have cut some spending. This is what Eric Erickson said after the bill passed. Conservatives got the whole of the House GOP to agree to cut the government by 8% as their opening negotiation with the Senate. But Matt Gaetz decided his grudge against Speaker McCarthy was more important. So he helped scuttle cuts, and now the government is going to grow. They're saying this is your fault.
So all the fighting between Democrats and Republicans has led to a stalemate. The debt ceiling extension is set to expire on November 17th, and if it's not raised by then, the U.S. government will default on its debt. And Democrats and Republicans still haven't been able to come up with an agreement on border security or Ukraine funding. This is a pretty serious situation, and it's important to understand what's going on. So here's a quick rundown on the different positions that the Democrats and Republicans are taking. Democrats, they want to raise the debt ceiling without any conditions. They want to keep funding for Ukraine at its current level and increase funding for border security only if it's accompanied by comprehensive immigration reform. Republicans raise the debt ceiling only if the Democrats agree to spending cuts and other policy changes, increase funding for border security, and reduce funding for Ukraine. So essentially, there's only been one person so far that I've listened to, and obviously there's got to be a lot of people, but one person that I listened to that actually sounds like an adult in the room, and this happens to be Senator Lindsey Graham. Some people love him, some people hate him, but I think he sounds pretty wise in this scenario here.
Good to have you here in person, Senator. You just voted for a short-term deal that doesn't include a cent for Ukraine nor for the U.S. border.
Right.
How did you swallow that?
We had to keep the government open. We got 45 days to fix both problems. I listened to Kevin closely. There will come out of the Senate soon a bill that will have 3 legs to it. Disaster funding, we need more, not less. Robust funding for Ukraine to get them through the next fighting season, not $24 billion, and a major effort to secure our border. I believe there's bipartisan support in the Senate to do both, and it will go to the House hopefully in the next 30 days.
What the speaker was talking about, though, was a bill, H.R. 2, regarding the border that Senate Democrats will never get on board.
There will
So
be
what
a
are you talking about?
Right. So we got to fix asylum. We need border security agent increases. We need more detention beds. I think there's Democratic support for major border security reform, but we have to attach it to Ukraine. To those who say we need to fix our border, you're right. To those who say we need to help Ukraine, you're right. To those who say we need to do the border, not Ukraine, you're wrong. The vast majority of Senate Republicans would support a combination of border security, Ukraine funding, and disaster aid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the situation. The Democrats and Republicans are using the debt ceiling to fight over border security and Ukraine funding. And they have until November 17th to come to an agreement. That's all I got for you today. And as always, please remember, life's not meant to be, it's meant to create. Too strong.